Before you do anything, Harry. Those were the first words my wife said to me after I caught her in another man's arms on our 10th wedding anniversary. Not "I'm sorry." Not "It's not what you think." Not even my name said with any kind of tenderness. Just, "Before you do anything." Like I was the problem. Like my pain was the thing that needed managing. My name is Harry Chase. I am 37 years old. I work in construction project management. I coach youth football on weekends. I have never cheated on anyone in my life. I had an engraved anniversary band in my jacket pocket and white peonies in my hand when my whole marriage collapsed on a Saturday night inside a nightclub called Velour. This is what happened. I want you to picture the version of me that walked into Velour that night, because that man deserved to be seen before everything that came after erased him. I was wearing the gray suit Kira picked out for me 2 Christmases ago. The one she said made me look like the kind of man people trust. I had white peonies tucked under my left arm. Her favorite. Always her favorite. She told me on our 3rd date that white peonies were the only flowers that didn't feel like an apology. I had the anniversary band in my inside jacket pocket, in a small velvet box, and every 20 minutes or so during the drive over I'd press my hand against my chest just to feel it there. Just to remind myself it was real. I'd spent 2 months planning this night. 2 months. It started in September when I realized our 10th anniversary was approaching and I wanted to do something that matched the weight of what 10 years meant. Not a restaurant reservation made the week before. Not flowers grabbed from a gas station. I wanted something she would remember when she was 80 years old and someone asked her about the best night of her life. I booked Velour because it was our place. We had our first real date there. Not a date we planned. Just a night we ended up there after a movie ran long and we didn't want to go home yet. We danced for 3 hours. I don't even dance. She laughed at me the entire time and I didn't care because she was laughing with me. And that was the night I knew I was going to marry her. I hired my cousin Lena as our photographer for the night. Lena does weddings and portraits professionally. She's good. She's discreet. And she owed me a favor from when I helped her move apartments in the rain. I told her to get inside early, find a position near the back lounge where I was planning to do the presentation, and wait. I told her, I want the moment she realizes what tonight is. Get her face. Lena texted me at 9:40 p.m. I'm in position. This place is beautiful. Harry. She's going to love it. Kira texted me at 9:43 p.m. Running a little late, babe. Meet me inside. I smiled reading that. I thought she was stuck in traffic. I thought the night was just beginning. I straightened my jacket in the reflection of the club's glass doors. I took one breath. I walked in. The music hit me first, something slow, something warm. The lighting was low and amber the way I remembered it. The host recognized my name from the reservation and walked me toward the lounge. I was scanning the room already, looking for Kira, smiling before I even found her because I was that kind of husband. The kind who smiles just knowing his wife is somewhere in the same room. I found her, and the smile died before it finished forming. The human brain does something strange when it sees something it refuses to believe. It stalls. It runs the image through every possible innocent explanation before it allows the truth to land. I know this now because I stood 30 feet away from my wife and another man for what felt like a full minute, and my brain spent every second of that minute lying to me. That's not her. Same dress, different woman. She's comforting a friend, a colleague, someone who got bad news tonight. I watched the man's hand move to the small of her back and pull her closer. I watched Kira, my Kira, 10 years, white peonies, the woman I built a life with, press her face into the curve of his neck. Not the way you hug a friend, not the way you comfort a colleague, the way you melt into someone, the way you go somewhere private inside a public room. He was tall, gray suit, open collar, the kind of man who looks like he's never been uncomfortable a day in his life. His hand moved in a slow circle on her back, casual, practiced, completely at home on my wife's body, and I felt something in my chest crack open like old wood. Then he kissed her temple, slowly, deliberately, like he'd done it 1,000 times. And Kira smiled. Not a polite smile, not an uncomfortable smile. The smile, the one I fell in love with, the one where her nose scrunches slightly and her whole face gives itself over to the feeling, unguarded, unperformed, completely real. I had not seen that smile in months. I had been trying to remember the last time she aimed it at me and coming up empty for weeks. And here it was, in another man's direction, in the club where we fell in love. I don't remember taking my phone out. I don't remember pressing record. I only know that when I looked down, the camera was already running, and some part of me, some calm and devastated part, understood that I needed this documented. Not for revenge. Not yet. Just because I knew that by morning, my mind would try to protect me by making me doubt what I was seeing. The footage was proof that I wasn't crazy, that this was real, that I was allowed to fall apart. 11 minutes. I stood there for 11 minutes. I counted them later when I reviewed the footage timestamp. 11 minutes of watching my wife exist in another man's arms like she belonged there. 11 minutes of holding white peonies that were meant for her. 11 minutes of the anniversary band pressing against my ribs from inside my pocket. The one engraved with "Still Choosing You," while she chose, right in front of me, someone else. My phone buzzed. A text from Lena. "Harry, I'm getting this. I have the angle. What do you want me to do?" I looked across the room and found Lena's eyes in the crowd. She had her camera low, partially concealed, face tight with something between fury and heartbreak. She had seen it before I walked in. She had been standing there watching my wife with another man, knowing I was about to walk through that door with flowers and a ring, and she had no way to stop it. I typed back with one thumb. 4 words. Get everything. Don't stop. Then I looked back at Kira. She still hadn't seen me. She was still somewhere else entirely. Somewhere I wasn't invited. Somewhere that had been built in the hours and late nights and turned over phone screens of the past 6 months. I know now it had been 6 months. I know now about the late office calls that ran past 10 p.m. The gym visits that happened at 9 at night. The perfume she sprayed before girls' nights that she never used to bother with. The second passcode on her phone that appeared in February and that I told myself meant nothing. I noticed all of it. I love her too much to let myself believe it. Standing in that club with my phone recording and my flowers wilting slightly in the heat of the room, I understood something that I will carry for the rest of my life. Love doesn't make you blind. It makes you choose not to see. Because seeing means the life you built is over. And you will accept almost any amount of pain to avoid that moment of knowing. I was done choosing not to see. The camera kept rolling. There's a particular kind of loneliness that only exists in a crowded room. I know this because I stood in the middle of the lure, music thumping, people laughing, glasses clinking, couples pressed together on the dance floor, and I have never felt more completely alone in my entire life. Not even close. Not even when my father died. Not even when I was 19 and broke and sleeping on a friend's couch for 3 months. None of those moments touched what I felt standing in that club, holding flowers for a woman who was letting another man hold her. People walked between us. Waitstaff. Couples. A group of women celebrating something, shrieking with laughter, cutting right through my sight line for 3 full seconds before parting again to reveal Kira exactly where she was. Still there. Still his. Still entirely unaware that her husband was 40 feet away documenting the destruction of their marriage in real time. I want to be honest about something because this story deserves honesty. Part of me, a small, stubborn, stupid part, was still looking for the explanation. Still running scenarios. Still searching for the angle where this wasn't what it was. I'm telling you this not because it makes me look good, but because it is the truth about what loving someone for 10 years does to your reasoning. It rewires you. It makes you allergic to conclusions that hurt. Even standing there with video evidence rolling on my phone screen, some piece of me was whispering, maybe it's innocent, maybe you're about to embarrass yourself, maybe you're about to blow up your marriage over a hug. Then Derek Cole, because that is his name, and I will use it, because he knew exactly what he was doing, slid both hands to Kira's waist, leaned back to look at her face, and said something that made her laugh and press her forehead against his jaw. That was the moment the last explanation died. My phone buzzed. Lena again. "Harry, I have everything. Full footage. His face, her face, all of it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Tell me what to do." I looked across the room at my cousin. She was still holding the camera low, but her eyes were on me, wet, furious, waiting. Lena has known me since we were 7 years old. She was at my wedding. She gave a speech at my wedding that made Kira cry. She stood in that club watching what was happening with the full weight of knowing exactly who Harry Chase was as a husband, what I had given, what I had built, what I had sacrificed to make that woman feel chosen every single day. And she was shaking. I texted her back, "Don't stop. Get it all. And Lena, back it up to the cloud right now." She read it. She nodded once across the room. She kept filming. I think about that decision a lot now. The decision to document rather than confront. People have opinions about it. I know because the internet eventually had a great deal to say on the subject. Some said I was cold, calculated, that a man who truly loved his wife would have stormed over and demanded answers instead of standing back with a camera running. What those people don't understand is that I wasn't being strategic. I was being shattered. And when you are being shattered in real time, your body makes decisions your mind hasn't caught up to yet. My body knew, even when my mind was still bargaining, that I would need proof. That without it, Kira would find a way to rewrite this night. That without footage, timestamps, Lena's professional camera, and my phone recording simultaneously, I would be the unstable husband who caused a scene at a nightclub over an innocent interaction. I had seen her face when she saw me. I knew it wasn't innocent, but I didn't know that yet. That came later. That came in scene 4. Right now, in scene 3, I was still just a man standing in a club he'd booked for a proposal, watching 11 minutes tick by on a timestamp, holding flowers that were never going to be given tonight, with his cousin across the room filming what would eventually become the most painful thing he ever had to watch on a screen. Let me tell you about the flowers for a second. The white peonies. I had ordered them 3 weeks in advance from a florist Kira had mentioned once, just once, in passing, 8 months ago, saying they had the most beautiful arrangement she'd ever seen. I wrote it down in my phone the same day she said it. I'm that kind of husband. Was that kind of husband. I wrote things down because I wanted to remember them, because I wanted her to feel, every time I showed up with something specific and intentional, that I had been paying attention all along. That she was worth paying attention to. I set the white peonies down on a table near the wall during the 9th minute. A stranger picked them up, looked around for their owner, and when nobody claimed them, kept them. I watched a complete stranger walk away with the flowers I spent 3 weeks arranging for my wife, and I felt nothing. I was too far past flowers by then. My phone showed 11 minutes and 43 seconds of footage when I finally stopped recording. I put my phone in my pocket. I looked at Kira one more time, still unaware, still somewhere I wasn't, and I made a decision that would define every day that came after it. I started walking. Not toward her, not toward Derek Cole, not toward any kind of confrontation or explosion or scene. I started walking toward the exit, because the most powerful thing I could do in that moment, the only thing that protected what little dignity I had left, was leave before she knew I had seen everything. Leave with the footage. Leave with Lena's camera. Leave with the ring still in my pocket and the truth in my hand, and let Kira Chase spend the rest of a night wrapped in another man's arms, completely unaware that her marriage had just ended 40 feet away in silence. I was almost at the door. That was when she turned around. I was 4 steps from the exit when it happened. That thing married couples develop. That invisible thread stretched between 2 people after years of sharing the same space, the same bed, the same air. She felt me. Across a crowded nightclub, through the music and the noise and the people, Kira felt me the way she always had, and she turned around. Our eyes met, and her face destroyed every last shred of doubt I was carrying. No confusion, no innocent surprise. No, Harry, oh my God, you're here. Come meet my colleague. What crossed her face in that half-second was pure, naked guilt. The kind that only lives in a person who knows exactly what they've done and has been waiting, somewhere in the back of their mind, for the moment the door finally opens and the truth walks in. Then I watched her do something I will never forget. I watched her compose herself. In real time, I watched her pull the guilt back behind her eyes, straighten her shoulders, and take a step toward me, already building the story, already preparing the version of tonight she would need me to believe. I raised my phone slowly. Let her see the camera. Let her understand that whatever story she was constructing, I already had the original. She stopped walking. She looked at Derek. She looked back at me. Her mouth opened. I put my phone in my pocket. I looked at her for one long, final moment. The woman I built everything for, and I placed the velvet box on the table beside me without a word. Then I walked out. The night air hit me like cold water. Behind me, the door swung shut on 10 years. I sat on the curb outside Velour in my best suit with my hands hanging between my knees and the city moving around me like I wasn't there. Cabs passed. Couples walked by arguing about nothing. Where to eat, whose friends were more annoying, and I wanted to stop every single one of them and tell them to go home and hold each other because at least they still had something to hold. My phone lit up. Kira. I watched her name glow and fade. Glow and fade. 7 times. A woman stopped in front of me. Older, kind face, a takeout bag in each hand. She looked at me the way people look at someone sitting alone on a curb in a good suit and said, "Honey, are you all right?" I looked up at her and said, "I just found out my wife is cheating on me. Tonight, on our anniversary." She set one of her takeout bags down, sat beside me on the curb without a word, and stayed there for 4 minutes. A complete stranger. She didn't offer advice, didn't ask questions, just sat with me in the way that only people who have felt something similar know how to sit with someone. When she finally stood up, she squeezed my shoulder and said, "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." That was the kindest thing anyone said to me that entire night. She walked away. I watched her go. Then I reached inside my jacket, took out the velvet ring box, and turned it over in my hands. "Still choosing you." I put it back in my pocket. Kira called an 8th time. I let it ring. I should have expected it. Men like Derek Cole always think there's a conversation that fixes what they've done. He came through the club doors alone, hands slightly raised, the universal gesture of a man who wants you to know he's not looking for a fight. He was still adjusting his collar. Kira wasn't with him. She'd sent him out first, which told me everything about the dynamic between them. He stopped a few feet away and said he wanted to explain. I stood up slowly from the curb. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I felt something clarify inside me. Not rage. Something colder and cleaner than rage. I said, "You knew she was married." He said, "It's complicated." That word. Complicated. As if my 10 years, my house, my engraved ring, my white peonies, my 2 months of planning a night she would remember at 80 years old. As if all of that was just a complication in someone else's story. I nodded once. Looked down at my shoes the way I do when I'm making a decision. Look back up. "Get away from me," I said, before I stopped being calm. He read something in my face that ended the conversation immediately. He went back inside without another word. What Derek didn't know, what nobody standing outside Velour that night knew, was that Lena had filmed the entire exchange from the doorway. His face, my face, every word. It was all backed up to the cloud before I even got in the cab. I wasn't done with Derek Cole. I just wasn't going to handle it in a parking lot in my anniversary suit. She came out 10 minutes after Derek went back in. She'd fixed her hair, reapplied something to her lips. She came toward me with her hands clasped in front of her and her eyes already wet. And I remember thinking, clinically, like I was observing a stranger, "She's been in there preparing this." She stopped 2 feet away and said, "Harry, please, let me explain before you do anything. Before you do anything. Not, 'I'm sorry.' Not, 'I love you.' Not even, 'I know what you saw.' Just a preemptive warning. A management strategy. As if the primary emergency here was containing my reaction rather than addressing her betrayal. Something locked inside me. I reached into my jacket and took out the velvet box. I opened it slowly and held it toward her so she could read the engraving inside the band. 4 words. "Still choosing you." I had picked those words because I wanted her to know that after 10 years, after the hard seasons, the lost pregnancy, the years when we were more tired than in love, I was still making the active decision to choose her every day. I watched her read it. I watched her face collapse. She reached for my hand and I stepped back, not violently, just one quiet step, and I closed the box. "I had this made 2 months ago," I said. "I've been planning tonight since September." She was crying now. Real tears. Maybe the realest thing she'd shown me all night. I put the box back in my pocket. I need to go. I walked to the cab waiting at the curb. She called my name once. I got in. I closed the door. The cab pulled away. I did not look back. Dom has been my best friend since we were 11 years old. He helped me pick out the anniversary band. He proofread the speech I'd written for tonight 3 times. He knew what this evening was supposed to be, which meant he understood, better than almost anyone, what it had become. I forwarded him everything at midnight. The dance floor footage. Kira's face when she saw me. Derek coming outside. All of it. 11 minutes and 43 seconds of the worst night of my life, compressed into a file and sent over a text thread that usually contained fantasy football arguments and memes. He called 30 seconds after receiving it. I answered. He said nothing. I counted. 1 full minute of silence on the line. Just breathing, watching the footage on the other end, processing what he was seeing. I sat in the dark of the hotel room I checked into because I could not go home, could not sleep in that bed, could not be inside rooms that still smelled like a perfume. Finally, Dom said, "I'm coming to get you." I said, "I'm okay." He said, "I know you are. I'm still coming." He drove 40 minutes across the city at midnight in his pajamas and a coat thrown over them. He brought 2 bottles of water, a bag of chips, and nothing useful to say, and that was exactly right. He sat with me in that hotel room until 4 a.m. and we barely spoke. He just stayed, present and solid in the particular way that good men show up for each other when words are completely useless. At one point he said, "You didn't deserve this, Harry." I said, "I know." That was enough. By Monday morning I had an attorney. Her name was Sandra Osei, recommended by a colleague, sharp in the way that quietly confident people are sharp. No theatrics, no reassuring speeches, just clean precision. I sat across from her desk and slid a USB drive across the surface without preamble. She watched the footage. All of it. When it finished, she set the USB down, folded her hands, and looked at me directly. "Mr. Chase," she said, "this is one of the cleanest cases I've seen in 11 years of family law. Documented infidelity, time-stamped, corroborated by a second independent source." She paused. "She won't be getting the house." I nodded. I didn't feel victorious. Victory implies you won something. I hadn't won anything. I'd lost 10 years, a future I'd planned in detail, and the specific joy of being a man who believed his wife was faithful. There's no winning after that. There's only the slow work of rebuilding on ground that no longer feels solid. What Sandra didn't know yet, what I showed her in our second meeting, was the screenshot I'd almost dismissed 3 weeks earlier. Kira's phone had buzzed face up on the kitchen counter on a Tuesday evening. 1 second. Just long enough for me to see a name at the top of the screen before she swept it up. Derek. I had chosen not to think about it that night. I had made myself a cup of tea and watched television and actively, deliberately, decided it meant nothing. It meant everything. Sandra added it to the file. The house was mine. She came to the house on Thursday. I let her in. I sat in the kitchen while she moved through the bedroom collecting what she needed, and I stayed very still the way you stay still around something that used to be safe and isn't anymore. She was quiet, careful, moving through rooms like someone who understood she had forfeited the right to take up space here. I heard something fall in the bedroom. Then silence. Then the sound of something being shoved back into a bag quickly. I walked to the doorway. On the floor between her feet, gray, branded, unmistakably a man's hoodie, was Derek's. I recognized the logo from the club footage. She grabbed it and was pressing it back into the bag without looking at me, her jaw tight, her movements small and fast like if she was quick enough I wouldn't process what I'd seen. I had processed it. Was any of it real? I asked. She stopped moving. She didn't answer. She didn't turn around. I waited 8 full seconds. I know because I counted them the same way I counted the 11 minutes in the club, and when she still said nothing, I understood that the silence was its own answer. I walked back to the front door. I held it open. She came out of the bedroom with the bag on her shoulder and walked past me without making eye contact. She stepped through the door and onto the porch, and I watched her walk down the path she had walked up thousands of times as my wife. I closed the door. I locked it. I stood in the hallway for a while. Then I made coffee and started making calls. I never planned to go public. Let me be clear about that because I know what people assumed. That I posted the footage for revenge. That I wanted her humiliated. That the whole thing was a performance engineered for views and outrage and algorithmic validation. That was not me. That was Lena. Lena, furious, fiercely loyal, operating on 3 days of barely processed shock, posted a blurred, carefully edited clip on her personal social media. No faces, no names, just the silhouettes on the dance floor and a caption that read, "My cousin planned a surprise anniversary proposal tonight." This is what his photographer captured instead. She did not tell me before she posted it. I woke up to 2 million views. By hour 4, the internet had done what the internet does. Background details in Kira's old posts, the recognizable interior of the loo, a reflection in a window that someone frame by frame to readable resolution. And Kira's social media had been found. Her comments section became a courtroom. Her tagged photos became evidence. Her old posts about my amazing husband were screenshot and circulated with the kind of collective fury that the internet reserves for specific categories of betrayal. Derek deleted every social media account he had by noon. Kira's phone, the one with the second passcode, the one that buzzed with his name on a Tuesday evening while I made tea and chose not to think about it, reportedly didn't stop for 3 days. I sat in my new apartment with one couch and read none of the comments. I already knew everything I needed to know. The internet was just catching up. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday morning in November. Sandra called me when the paperwork cleared. She said, "It's done, Mr. Chase." I thanked her. I sat for a moment in the parking lot of the building where my attorney's office was and looked at the sky and felt not happy, not relieved, not devastated. Just quiet. The specific quiet of a storm that has finally passed and left the air completely still. I drove to the jeweler that afternoon. I placed the velvet box on the counter and explained that I needed to return the band. The jeweler, an older man who had helped me design it, opened the box, read the engraving, and looked at me without asking any questions. The kind of look that understands everything and needs none of it confirmed. I asked him one thing. "Keep the engraving plate." He nodded. He understood. Because those words, "still choosing you," were not wrong. They were just early. They belonged to a future that hadn't arrived yet. To a woman I hadn't met yet. To a version of my life that was still being built in the rubble of the one that had just come down. That night, Dom took me back to Velour. Same club, different reason. We sat at the bar, not the corner booth I had reserved, never that booth again. And Dom raised his glass and said, "To the man who showed up with flowers and left with his dignity." I raised mine. For the first time in months, the smile on my face was real.